Good afternoon and a warm welcome from Amsterdam to today's press briefing. My name is Marie-Agnes Heine and I'm the head of communications at EMA. At today's press briefing, we want to discuss what EMA and the European Regulatory Network, Medicines Regulatory Network, are doing to tackle the shortages of some products in a class of medicines called GLP-1 receptor agonists, which have been receiving quite a lot of attention recently. I'm delighted to introduce our two speakers today. Here with me at the EMA building in Amsterdam is Mrs. EMA Cook, the Executive Director of the European Medicines Agency. And we also have Karl Broch, who is the President of the Federal Institute of Drugs and Medical Devices in Germany, who is joining remotely. Both speakers, EMA and Karl, are co-chairing the MSSG. This is EMA's Executive Steering Group on Shortages and Safety of Medicinal Products. This group is tasked to coordinate EU actions to manage medicine supply issues and issues related to the quality, safety, and efficacy of medicines. Before we get started, a few housekeeping notes. So we have reserved a maximum of 45 minutes for this briefing. Your microphones are muted and will be opened only for questions if you have raised your hand and after you have been given the floor. This briefing is broadcast live, and as usual, we will also make the recording available afterwards on our website. Initially, EMA Cook will provide you with an overview of the products concerned and the challenges we are facing in Europe. Then Karl Broch will present to you the MSSG recommendations that we published today. And before we take your questions, EMA Cook will make some concluding remarks. I'm now giving the floor to EMA's Executive Director, EMA Cook. EMA, please.
Thank you very much, Marie-Agnes, and good afternoon from me too. Thank you for joining this press briefing this afternoon. As Marie-Agnes said, today we're going to talk about shortages of specific classes of medicines, GLP-1 receptor agonists. We will talk about what we're doing to minimize the impact of these shortages on patients most at need. Now, demand for these medicines continues to increase and the current supply cannot keep up. So since 2022, we've been seeing shortages not just at the European Union level, but also in many countries across the globe. You'll hear about some of what we and the member states have been doing to mitigate these shortages. GLP-1 receptor agonists are authorized to treat type 2 diabetes or obesity, or in some cases both. These are conditions that have reached epidemic proportions in Europe, and according to the OECD, 1 in 6 Europeans is currently living with obesity, and we're expected to have 38 million diabetics in the EU by 2030. This means that shortages of these medicines are a major public health concern, and they require urgent and coordinated action across the member states and also across many actors, including industry, medicines regulators, prescribers, healthcare professionals, pharmacists, and of course patients. So you will all have heard about the medicines concerned as they've made the headlines in the last couple of years. The ones most at shortage in the EU are Ozempic, Saxenda, Trulicity, and Victoza. And these medicines are everywhere, from online discussions on social media to public celebrity statements, and they're becoming part of popular culture. So we're hearing a lot of noise, but we cannot ignore that there's also a rise in the off-label use by people who are not living with diabetes or obesity and who see GLP-1 agonists as a possible miracle weight loss drug. As medicines regulators, we have a role to play in managing shortages, and this is why we have given EU-wide recommendations for all players involved to ensure that we preserve these medicines for those who need them most. But these recommendations can only make a difference if we can cut through the noise to reach prescribers and consumers. On our side, let me explain a little bit about what we've done so far. So we are in very close contact with the companies concerned, so to monitor the extent of shortages and to discuss and advise on plans to increase manufacturing capacity. But increasing manufacturing capacity may require the building of a new manufacturing site, the transfer of operations to that site, the addition of a filling line, all of which are quite complex procedures. And the medicines themselves are complex medicines with complex manufacturing processes. So from a medicines regulator perspective, we can support and facilitate the upscale of the production from a regulatory point of view, but these are lengthy processes and they may involve other additional players. We've also worked in the background to provide a coordinated EU response to managing the shortage, for example, by helping to redistribute stocks between member states, sharing best practices between member states, and communicating with healthcare professionals and patients. Despite these efforts, we are concerned that our messages don't always reach the healthcare providers and patients and consumers whose efforts really will make the most difference in helping us to manage these shortages. A number of member states have also put in place actions to preserve the limited stocks for patients most at need. And the sort of actions that have been taken include controlling the number of prescriptions individual pharmacies can sell, also limiting prescriptions and reimbursements, and increasing reporting of stock distributions. But as I said, despite our collective efforts, the shortages continue and there are no instant solutions, and we don't expect them to be resolved this year. So this is why we've adopted the recommendations that have just been published. These recommendations call on different actors to play their part and help us to manage the situation and to save lives. Industry, regulators, healthcare professionals, patients, and the public at large, we all have a role to play in mitigating and eventually resolving these shortages. And we're expecting and appealing to everyone to take this very seriously and help us to resolve the issue. So I'll now leave the floor to my colleague, Professor Carl Broig, who co-chairs the executive group that coordinates the EU-wide response to shortages. And Carl will walk you through the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Emer. Thank you, everyone, for being here today to address this topic. And indeed, I'm very pleased to provide you with some more details on the recommendations published today. While we work to manage the shortages of GLP-1 receptor agonist has been ongoing since 2022. These recommendations are a significant new step in our efforts to deal with this issue as we are bringing that all together. You learned by the explanations of EMA that the situation is multifactorial, and so we are addressing different stakeholders here. So let's first have a look to the production sides. There is a continued higher demand. This increase in demand is much higher than the increase in production capacity, and Emma mentioned the complexities, so that it needs time to build up here more production sites. The medicines we are talking about are produced by complex manufacturing processes that cannot just simply be scaled up. So we have to take that into consideration. We continuously exchange information with the companies and closely monitor their efforts to increase supply here. In our recommendations, we call on companies to further step up efforts to increase capacity and to implement mitigation activities to avoid empty shelves in pharmacies across Europe. And we have seen that in many countries here in Germany. And we are using regulatory flexibility to prioritize activities with regard to production capacity. We have done that for other products as well. And of course, we are prepared to react here as well. We also expect companies to think very carefully about promotional activities. So we have seen examples in some countries, and we are in dialogue here with the national authorities. So as long as the shortage situation persists, we should avoid promotional activities. Claims made in the context of such activities should align with the rational use of these medicines and with public health goals. Companies should also implementing or consider implementing awareness campaigns on weight management and educational activities on the ongoing shortage and its implications for clinical practice. So EMA already mentioned here off-label use. At the same time, national competent authorities have committed to continue working with companies and exploring the possibility of implementing controlled distribution where appropriate. We did so in Germany, and other member states did so as well. This commitment, together with the efforts to cooperate and exchange information amongst EU countries, should allow us to maintain an overview of the situation as it develops and understand the impact of mitigation measures. Bringing everyone to the table is the most effective way of managing the shortages. That is one of the key lessons learned from the pandemic situation, and it's a clear experience here in Germany with our scientific advisory council, including all stakeholders. So if everybody is at the table, we find solutions. For the healthcare professionals, the recommendations are a reminder that any use outside of the indications of the individual medicines is considered off-label, and that this use will aggravate existing shortages. These medicines should only be prescribed in line with their authorized use, taking into account relevant national and therapeutic guidelines. Therefore, we encourage the member states to work together with experts and learned societies to develop guidelines that help to prioritize patients who are most at need for these medicines, so we can work to ensure they have uninterrupted access during shortages. GLP-1 receptor agonists are not approved and should not be used for weight loss in people who do not have obesity or who are overweight without weight-related health problems, something which is mentioned as cosmetic use. Healthcare professionals who are approached by patients without underlying health problems should consider discussing appropriate lifestyle changes instead. So to reach patients and members of the public, it is important to remember once again that the GLP-1 receptor agonists are prescription medicines and should only be used under medical supervision. Using these medicines without medical supervision can put people's health at risk, as they are not without side effects, and some of them might be serious. And finally, patients who are already being treated with such medicines should contact their doctor if their prescribed medicine is not available. The doctor will look together with them and may select another treatment as necessary. There again, the exchange with learned societies and their guidance documents comes into place to find best treatment alternatives, or different outcomes come into place. So thank you for this, and we are addressing this in our recommendation paper from the MSSG, which is published today, and we hope that we have here a broader sense in the public with regard to these issues we are discussing here. Thank you very much. Back to you, Emer.
Thank you very much, Carl. And as Carl said, these recommendations are part of a wider series of actions to help us tackle these shortages. On the 1st of July, we will also host a multi-stakeholder workshop to identify possible additional actions in discussion with all key actors in the field. So also, I just wanted to mention that to gain more insight on how these medicines are used beyond their authorized indications, the European Medicines Agency is currently carrying out a real-world data study, and we hope that the results from this study will help us tailor or refine our further actions. Shortages are a priority for us, and shortages of GLP-1 agonists illustrate just how complex the challenge of shortages is. The only way to solve these shortages is for everyone working together and pulling in the same direction. So this is the objective of the recommendations of the workshop, and also the objective of communications like today's press briefing. When it comes to GLP-1 receptor agonists, all our actions should aim at protecting European patients who need these medicines most. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Ema, and also Carl. So I'm now opening the floor for questions from the media. So dear colleagues, please turn on your camera, raise your hand if you want to ask a question. And when I give you the floor, we will unmute you and you can ask a question once your microphone has been enabled. So let's see who is going to ask a question. So far, I have no hands at all. I can't believe that there are no questions around this topic. Now they're coming. So let's see who is first here. I think we have a colleague from Politico, Marie Eckels. So please go ahead, Marie.
Hi there. Thanks very much for the briefing. It was very informative. I was just wondering, you say that the companies, or in the press materials, you say that the companies will need to ensure that the messages they use to promote these medicines have been approved by regulatory authorities. So I'm just wondering, are you suggesting here that maybe companies are promoting these drugs off-label? And if so, what kind of evidence do you have for this? And also in which EU countries in particular?
I will probably first hand to Carl on this question because it's dealing with recommendations, but perhaps Ema afterwards wants to add something.
Yeah, thank you. So we have no concrete numbers about this, but we have seen examples, for instance, in Norway, where this has been done, and it's national responsibility. Therefore, the network of the national competent authorities working together in the MSSG is so important. So if in one country this is raised, then to address it and to make the discussion. So we did that with Novo, and they reacted to that. I think this is very important that we have that in our considerations.
Thanks, Carl. Ema, do you want to add anything?
Just to build on what Carl said, companies are required to, any promotional activity related to medicine is required to be in accordance with the authorized indications. And this is then managed at a national level. But the first priority or the first obligation is for companies to ensure that their promotional activities are in line with the authorized indications. And then member states have different mechanisms to monitor this and make sure that this continues to be the case.
Thank you very much, Ema and Carl. I'm now taking a question from Naomi Kreske from Bloomberg. Naomi, please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. Do you have a sense of how much of the prescription of Ozempic in large European markets is off-label? I don't know if that would be something that you could say for Germany or for some other markets. Thanks.
Thank you very much about the off-label use. I'm first handing over to Ema, and then Carl can give the German perspective. Over to you, Ema.
Yeah. No, thank you very much. And of course, this is a very important question. And in fact, it's the exact reason that we have now decided to launch a study through our network of federated data sources in the member states to look at precisely how these products are being used in practice. We have a study on, we've just started a study now with 5 data sources, which will give us an idea of what the actual use is in practice. And we will extend this once to additional data sources once we have the preliminary results, which we expect sometime August, September.
Carl, you want to add on the German perspective here?
Yeah, so in Germany we have some hints, in particular with the private prescriptions, that here the indications are not followed as we wish to. But we have the concrete numbers, so we are waiting for these data from the then application study as well to have a better knowledge about this.
Thank you very much, EMA and Carl. So for the time being, I don't see any additional questions. So this is your last chance. Helen Collis is coming up from Politico. Helen, please, the floor is yours.
Hello, thanks very much. I wanted to ask again about the off-label prescribing. Carl, you said that healthcare professionals should not prescribe off-label, but prescribing off-label is the choice of the doctor presented with the patient in front of them. Are you saying that the right to decide what's best for their patient should be taken?
We didn't hear the last part of your question. It stopped, the tone stopped when you asked the actual question. So perhaps you can repeat. Helen, are you still there?
This meeting is being recorded.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you. Yeah, only the concrete question, if you would please repeat this on the off-label prescription and the healthcare professionals.
I'm sorry about that. Yes, it was to ask, you said, Carl, that healthcare professionals should not prescribe off-labels, but prescribing off-label is the choice of the doctor presented with the patient in front of them. So
I think it's whether we are going to kind of dictate to, translate it a little bit, dictate to healthcare professionals that they can't prescribe off-label. So, Carl, we are now handing over to you to respond to this question.
This meeting
But I
is
think
being
it's our
recorded.
intention today to make them more aware that we need these drugs for the time being, for the patients who need it, who are at most need of these prescriptions with diabetes or with obesity if it has a healthcare impact. What we try to avoid is that patients with obesity without additional problems or patients who are already prescribed with these drugs get to a shortage if there is too broad prescription. And particularly with the private prescriptions, there was a hint for us that it is a little bit too much in the off-label indication, and that might be with the cosmetic use, and therefore we are so interested in the data from the study we have now started to have a better understanding what's ongoing between the patients and the physicians and how we can address that. Of course, we will see these shortages over the next months, and even it might be next year an issue because the demand is so strongly increasing and the production capacity is not coming after this. And so we see the industry establishing new production sites. So there is now by Eli Lilly a new production site planned in Germany. Novo is planning in Europe in different sites. But we need some time. So for this time, the drugs should be used for the right people and patients. And that's our intention to sensitize here.
Thank you very much, Carl. And I think that responded, that answered your question, Helen. So far, I don't see any additional questions. So unless anybody has a last minute question they want to raise, I would like to thank all of you for, is there a question? No. Okay, I see. Vasiliki Angouridi, a Greek colleague, so please go ahead. We can't hear you. Vasiliki, we can't hear you.
Hello, hi.
I
wasn't able to. Yeah, I wasn't able to speak. So I was wondering, hello again, and thank you for your briefing. Are there any issues of stockpiling? Maybe some member states, have you had any reports about member states stockpiling quantities of GLP-1 receptor agonists? And if so, could that be used to kind of mitigate shortages in other member states? Thank you.
Thanks a lot. And I give this question to Karl.
So we don't have any information for stockpiling, particularly on these products. What we have seen in some member states is that there are restrictions to export these drugs from their markets, but no concrete stockpiling of these products. In Germany, we have some discussions on stockpiling based on the experience during the pandemic situation or the recent winter seasons for some products for children and adolescents like antibiotic fluids. And there is an incentive set by our government to pharmaceutical industry to accept higher pricing in certain circumstances, but then if they get higher pricing in their liaises with then statutory health insurance companies, then they have to take stock for up to 6 months. But this is in certain circumstances and is not thought for these products.
Thank you very much. So again, I'm looking for additional questions. Does any of the journalists still have a question they want to ask our speakers today? I do not see any additional hands. So thank you very much for your interest in today's press briefing and your participation. Do we have another one? Ah, Helen. Oh, sorry. Helen, I gave you the chance to ask another question. Over to you.
I'm sorry. I just thought it would be a good chance for you to update us on the totality of evidence of falsified Ozempic, Wegovy, GLP-1s in general across the EU.
Thanks, Helen, for that question. And probably EMA can give you a little bit of information on the falsified products.
Yes, so thank you very much, Helen, and thank you for drawing attention to the issue of possible falsified products in the EU. In fact, we've had one report of possible falsification in the legal supply chain, and we were very pleased because actually the system worked very well, and these medicines never actually reached the pharmacists or the patients. That's not to say that there isn't other falsified supply circulating outside of the legal supply chain, particularly online. And our message to potential users would be just to be very careful that you do get your source of medicine from a registered pharmacy. There are registered pharmacies who have online sites, but there are also some rogue actors that are supplying or claiming to supply some weight loss medicines. And it's very important that consumers realize the potential risks of these unauthorized products.
Thanks a lot, Emer. And with this statement, we are closing today's press briefing. Thanks again for your participation. Also, big thank you to our speakers today. And if you have any further questions, as usual, please contact our press office. And we also said that we are going to publish and upload the recording of this press briefing on our website. So thanks again, and goodbye for